Says Israel and Lebanon have agreed to a 10-day ceasefire. Let's go live to CNN's Kevin Liptak from the White House with the latest. He put this on Truth Social, right, Kevin?
Yeah, he did, and this is quite significant. This had been something of a sticking point as the president works to broker a deal with Iran. This had been something that had been holding that back in some ways. Now the president saying that it is.
Yeah, the Israel and in Lebanon has called a ceasefire. So over the last more than 10 days, a ceasefire. What was I gonna look up? Oh yeah, sorry about that.
At least partially resolved for now. He says that this ceasefire came about after two separate conversations that he held with the president
I want to check something out right now. Let me see if my video is getting played on YouTube.
The president writing, quote, "These two leaders have agreed that in order to achieve peace between their countries, they will formally begin a 10-day ceasefire at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time." The president goes on to say, on Tuesday, the two countries met for the first time in 34 years here in Washington, D.C. with our great Secretary of State Marco Rubio. I have directed Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Rubio together with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Raisen-Kane, to work with Israel and Lebanon to achieve a lasting peace.
Hopefully the ceasefire lasts.
The president really touting this as a major accomplishment. Of course, we know that Israel has been striking inside of Lebanon, going after Hezbollah in that country.
You guys can hear me.
For the last several weeks.
Picking up.
Iran, as the U.S. works to get this deal across the finish line there, had initially
Let me look at YouTube. Let me actually look at MS now.
Just in, President Trump just announcing on social media a 10-day ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon set to begin, he says, in about 5 hours. And joining us is MS Now's Julia Jester. Tell us more about what we're learning.
Well, Anna, just days after the ambassadors to Lebanon and Israel met at the U.S. State Department, led by Secretary Rubio, the president just announced a ceasefire. He said on Truth Social that a 10-day ceasefire will begin at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday. This is coming after Trump spoke with both the president of Lebanon and the prime minister of Israel today, and he added that Vance, Rubio, Chairman Kaine will work with Israel and Lebanon to achieve a lasting peace. Now, this week, a senior administration official had said that the U.S. was not pushing for a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. Notably, in these conversations, Hezbollah was not involved because that would be viewed as giving Iran a seat at the table. But this is a welcome development of the cessation of hostilities. Administration officials said that these two ceasefire peace tracks are separate. The U.S. and Iran talks appear to be a separate, parallel discussion to the Lebanon-Israel portfolio, but the cessation of hostilities is quite welcome given the devastation, particularly in southern Lebanon, as Israel has continued to attack what has been a buffer zone south of the Litani River. And there have been a lot of casualties, especially in recent days. So the fact that there will be a 10-day ceasefire, notably that will extend past this U.S.-Iran ceasefire set to expire next week. But that is a welcome development in the region, Anna.
Yeah, and just clarifying, as I'm looking at this post from the president, it says this 10-day ceasefire would begin at 5 p.m. Eastern.
Oh, 5 p.m. And then Eastern. Oh, I never even seen this. So 5 p.m. President Joseph Aoun of Lebanon, Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu of Israel, the two have agreed to a ceasefire. Actually, let me put my controls down. I was playing a video game. Sorry about that. I was playing Call of Duty, so I had my hand in my... I had a controller in my hand. I was playing a game. So yeah, there's an excellent, highly respected 10-day ceasefire at 5 Eastern. Two countries met for the first time in 34 years. Secretary of State Rubio, Dr. J.D. Vance, Chairman of Joint Chief Daniel Raising Kaine, to work with Israel to achieve a lasting peace. To finish 9 wars. I don't know about that, but that's fun. Let me go to MS Now. Let me go to someone else. Let me go to BBC. Sorry, I don't know why that like logo thing is like glitching out. That like a logo thing on. Sorry about that. I don't know why that thing's bugging out.
To Ukraine now, and at least 16 people have been killed and more than 90 injured overnight in Russian missile and drone attacks across the country. 9 people were killed in the southern port of Odessa. 4 died in missile strikes on the capital Kyiv, including a 12-year-old child. Another 3 were killed in Dnipro in central Ukraine. In several parts of the country, people have been left without electricity following Russian attacks specifically targeting Ukrainian energy infrastructure. Our correspondent in Kyiv, Sarah Rainsford, has more.
16 civilians who've been confirmed dead by the authorities here in Ukraine. It was a very, very difficult night for people here in this country. The attacks began, the Russian missile and drone attacks began around about 2:30 this morning, and they came in waves. We know from the air forces here that there were around about 700 missiles and drones launched by Russia. Some of them intercepted, but some of them did hit their targets. And whatever Russia was aiming at, certainly residential buildings here have been very, very badly damaged. In Kyiv, in the capital, where a 12-year-old boy was killed, another child and his mother were rescued from the rubble of their home. And there are a number of fatalities, 9 people killed in Odessa, the port city to the south of here, where port infrastructure, it appears, was targeted. But again, people sleeping in their beds were killed and were injured. Dozens of people, more than 90 people injured in this wave of attacks across Ukraine. It is.
Man, it's always drone attacks. Very sad.
attacks, officials said on Thursday. Russia unleashed its deadliest attack so far this year on the Ukrainian capital Kyiv and other cities overnight on Wednesday into Thursday. More than a dozen people were killed, including a 12-year-old child, while scores more were wounded in drone and missile attacks, officials said on Thursday. The morning saw residents and emergency crews cleaning debris scattered around heavily damaged buildings in the capital. Several people, including the child, died in Kyiv, Mayor Vitaly Klitschko said. Near a high-rise apartment block damaged in the strikes, local resident Olena Kapustyan said the building had been hit before.
I fear for our country and for everything we have, for the people. I feel so sorry for the children. So many people died today. Children died.
Prosecutors put the number of injured in the city at least 60. Ukraine's Air Force said its units shot down or neutralized over 30 missiles and more than 600 drones.
Yeah, it's very sad. Freaking Russia, the aggression. I'm gonna go use the restroom real fast. I'll be back. Oh, I'm back. Let me see. Let me just do CNN, but seems like they haven't updated their stuff in a while. They just updated this right now.
Dimitri Sosopolo, I want to ask you, you're the U.S.-China correspondent for the Financial Times, and you've got some really important new reporting, which I briefly mentioned at the top of the show, but hugely significant. You're reporting that Iran is using a Chinese spy satellite to target U.S. bases. Okay, explain what you know and the obvious thing here about why this is so important.
Well, I think the important point, Erin, is that in recent weeks and even last year, we've had stories about Chinese satellite companies providing satellite imagery to the Iranians. But those are actually pictures they then transmit across. What we have here is the Iranians have signed a contract with a relatively new Chinese company called Empasat. And that contract gives the Iranians, the Iranian military specifically, not only access to the satellite, they essentially can control the satellite. They input task orders. They tell the satellite where to look, when to look. And, you know, we obtained information showing what they were looking at and what they asked the satellite to do. And we found that they targeted, or they looked down on American U.S. targets in the region, particularly last month. We have data for about a week. And they then hit some of those targets after they had looked down on them. And so I think this is very consequential, because what we know is now the Chinese are providing the Iranians with access to control a satellite themselves that is just for them. And that's significant.
Yeah, absolutely. As you point out, that is distinct from just providing pictures.
Yeah, so Iran is Chinese satellites are helping the Iran's army, not army, but their government to target U.S. bases.
That China may choose to provide.
So far, 13 ships have made the wise choice of turning around. And as we continue to hold this blockade at the order of the Secretary and the President, any vessel that compares to comply with our instructions will be dealt with accordingly.
The Strait of Hormuz
As
blockade.
Of this morning, U.S. Central Command has not been required to board any particular ships. On that bridge,
Oh, sorry about that. It was just, let me watch the rest of that.
Our sailors maintain a constant watch, maneuvering the ship tactically and safely.
Just them blocking the Strait of Hormuz. What is this? Oh shoot, I pressed the short. Sorry about that. Once I press that short thing, I have to delete the thing.
Human rights groups now reporting Iranian courts have sentenced 4 more people to death over January's protests in Iran, including the first woman set for execution. Dr. Sheila Nazarian fled Iran as a child. She's now a plastic surgeon, lives in California, and she's back on our program and joins me now. Doctor, why don't you comment on this woman in a moment here? But since the beginning of this war, these are the numbers we tracked. 656 executions in 3 months. 341 in January, 307 in February, 8 recorded in March while Iran was offline. Let me get to being offline in a moment here, but you were talking about violations called crimes against God. And when a woman is executed in Iran, the details you provide are harrowing. Is this going to happen?
Well, Bill, in Iran, just to let your audience know, they believe this regime, these Islamists, they believe that if a woman is killed and she's a virgin, she goes to heaven. So what they do is they will gang rape her before they execute her. Sure. And it's just mind-boggling to me, this Elizabeth Banks sitting comfy in a little cushy couch on a podcast with her hair slicked back, talking about how could anyone vote for Donald Trump. Well, you know, Kamala Harris posted on X yesterday that this is a war of choice, and Donald Trump is the only one helping these people in Iran. So Elizabeth Banks, this woman, Bita, is about to be gang raped and publicly executed, and so are 3 more women. And they have been doing this to many young people, every single day, 1 or 2 public executions. So you're sitting there on your cushy couch talking about Kamala Harris. You claim to be a feminist. You claim to be a humanitarian. Where are you when the women need you? You're a fake. You're a hypocrite. You're of no help to
Okay, maybe I'm not gonna watch.
10-day ceasefire starting on Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. President Donald Trump made the announcement after speaking with leaders from both sides. The announcement comes just days after the U.S. hosted the first direct talks between the 2 countries in decades. And it follows more than a month of war between Israel and the militant group Hezbollah that has devastated large parts of Lebanon and displaced more than 1 million people. Trump also invited the leaders of both countries to the White House for its first high-level talks in more than 4 decades. A Lebanese official said President Joseph Aoun declined to speak directly with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu due to deep divisions within Lebanon over direct negotiations with an enemy country. Trump did not outline anything about the withdrawal of Israeli troops from southern Lebanon or whether the displaced can return to their homes.
Yeah, sorry about that. Watching that Fox News video, I did not expect that woman to be talking like that. Yeah, that was crazy.
Straight. country in the world would be in trouble. So we're doing very well with respect to that, having to do with the whole situation on Iran. The blockade is amazing. It's holding up very strong, very powerfully, and I think we're making a lot of progress in that. But the Pope has to understand Iran, very simple. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. The world would be in great danger.
Mr. President, would you meet with the Pope to even out your differences with Catholics or Torah?
I don't think it's necessary.
Mr. President, you spoke with Prime Minister Modi a couple of days ago. What was the conversation like? What is it that is on the table now?
I had a very good talk with him, and he's a friend of mine from India. And he's doing great. We had a very good conversation.
Considering extending the ceasefire with Iran?
With who?
With Iran.
We're doing very well, I can tell you. Maybe it'll happen before that. I'm not sure it needs to be extended. Just so you know, Iran wants to make a deal, and we're dealing very nicely with them. We've got to have no nuclear weapons. If we do, that's a big factor. And they're willing to do things today that they weren't willing to do 2 months ago.
It's been about 6 weeks since Donald Trump first started his war with Iran. So I wanted to take time to speak with people directly about what's happening. On February 28th, Donald Trump dragged the United States into another forever war. And that same day, Iran choked off access to the Strait of Hormuz. Now, that's where about 1/5 of the world's oil and natural gas supply comes through. Already, the war has killed thousands of innocent civilians in the region. 13 service members have been killed, and hundreds more American troops have been wounded. Now, if you remember, at the time the first bomb was dropped, most of America was shocked and confused. Why were we at war? Was there an imminent threat to the United States? Didn't Donald Trump promise no new wars? Around that time, Congress also began receiving briefings from the administration about what was going on. And many of us had those very same questions. What we soon came to find out was that Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth, and other top Trump officials just couldn't get their story straight on why we were at war, on what our goal was, and on how we were going to get out of it. So let's do some basic questions. When will the war be over? First, Trump said that it would be over in 4 or 5 weeks. Then Trump said repeatedly the war is already won. And then he said the U.S. still needs to, quote, finish the job. And then he said operations could end soon. And then he said the military may need to go further. So far, there is no exit. It seems like this war will drag on and on. So second question, what will the war cost? 13 Americans have already died. That's the ultimate price. And the money just keeps climbing. More than $1 billion a day, and now the Pentagon is expected to ask for nearly $100 billion in extra money for the Iran war. And again, with no end in sight. Third question, why are we fighting in Iran? Every day, the Trump administration's justification and plans for this war are different. On March 2nd, Pete Hegseth said, we are fighting to end a 47-year war. The same day, Hegseth said, we're fighting because Iran refused to negotiate. In another comment on the very same day, Marco Rubio said, we're fighting because Israel was planning to strike Iran. And then, on the same day, Trump said, we're not fighting because Israel was planning to strike. Trump said, quote, if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand. Then a couple of days after that, Trump said the reason why the U.S. bombed Iran is because he had a, quote, good feeling that Iran would strike U.S. assets and our personnel in the region. And now, the Trump administration seems to have landed on the line that they need to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. And Iran should not have a nuclear weapon, but understand this. If Donald Trump really believed that Iran's nuclear ambitions were a threat, he had a chance to stop them. In fact, the United States had a deal that could have prevented Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. That was President Obama's nuclear deal with Iran. The deal forced Iran to reduce its enriched.
Yeah, it was Obama's nuclear deal. I think it was called the IJCP or the joint. It was called a joint JCPOA. Yeah, this was the deal. This is a deal that that Iran, they were gonna lower their aims to get nuclear enrichment. Yeah, if anybody wants to know about what happened, it was during Obama's term. Yeah. When did it say July? It was created in 2015. The United States withdrew, Iran withdrew in 2025. Yeah, but during the 12-day war, Iran backed out of it. So yeah, just anybody wants to know the history about this Iran nuclear deal. We left the JCPOA. I think it's called JCPOA. It's kind of a long name. Yeah, Iran nuclear deal. Yeah, Obama signed it. I didn't know America left in 2018. So I guess in 2018 America left. Just let's just take this off. Let me go back to the video of
uranium, and it granted access for international experts to go into Iran and actually monitor its nuclear sites. It also prevented Iran from having key tools that it would need to actually build a nuclear weapon. Donald Trump ripped up that deal and got nothing in return. He called Obama's deal the worst deal ever. But once Trump tore up that deal, Iran's nuclear enrichment went up, putting them closer to having a nuclear weapon. Okay, fourth question. How is Trump leading our nation through this war? Trump announced on social media that he would bomb Iran. He said a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. The leader of the free world threatened to annihilate the civilization of Iran and commit other war crimes. That's not leadership. That's dangerously deranged. At this instant, we are in a very fragile ceasefire. The Strait of Hormuz is still blocked off. The U.S. military has a blockade set up, and all-out war could resume at any moment. And that takes us to the fifth question. How is the war affecting us here at home? Well, prices are up because of the blockade. Oil tankers are blocked and gas prices are averaging over $4 a gallon. Because about a third of the world's fertilizer also goes through the Strait of Hormuz, farmers can't grow as much food, and that means prices in the grocery stores will go higher too. And anything that you buy that gets moved around by trucks that use gasoline or diesel, those costs are going up too. And I mean more than they have already gone up. And
yeah, I know the price of everything is going up. Instead of addressing these out-of-control costs here at home, the Trump administration plans to ask for nearly $100 billion in extra money for the Iran war. And he wants another $1.5 trillion budget for the Pentagon next year.
We can't take care of daycare. We're a big country. We have 50 states. We have all these other people. We're fighting wars.
Look, they're not even hiding the ball. Donald Trump is telling you right out loud he is not going to lower your costs. He's going to use your money overseas in a war that he can't even explain.
Yeah, I know. That's the sad thing, that he's like freaking pushing us to a war that we didn't have to be dragged to, but I guess Israel and the Trump administration wanted us to go. And that isn't a conspiracy theory like yours. Yeah, I'll play the rest of that video.
People in America can see what Donald Trump is doing is wrong. They can see that Donald Trump's threat of war crimes is dangerous, and they know that something needs to change. And here's the thing. Donald Trump is not a king. Congress has the power and the responsibility to end Trump's war. But the spineless Republicans, they just won't stand up. In the midst of Donald Trump's countdown on his claim to annihilate Iran, Republican leader John Thune didn't even call the Senate back into session to give us a chance to exercise our constitutional rights to stop this war. Instead, he let everybody go out on vacation, and more importantly, once again, he let Donald Trump do whatever he wants. This week, when Senate Democrats put a war powers resolution on the floor of the Senate, once again, Republicans shot it down. This resolution would have ended Trump's war. And here's what that tells me. Every Republican who refuses to stand up to Trump, every Republican who dodges questions, every Republican who votes to let this war continue bears some of...
Oh, hello? Sorry about that. Somebody called me. I thought it was like for me. I normally go to a doctor's appointment. I thought it was somebody from my doctor's appointment. Yeah, let me see. Let me actually finish watching the video.
The responsibility for what is happening in Trump's war, because the Republicans in Congress have the power to stop what's going on. And still, no matter how crazy or how costly this war becomes, the Republicans refuse to end it. Their cowardice makes them complicit in every dangerous action that Donald Trump takes. But that doesn't mean that we should give up on Congress stopping this war. Congress has the power. Democrats are ready to go. We just need to push the Republicans harder. They hold the key to ending this war, and we need to push them to use it. That means every single person.
Yeah, let me watch another video.
If there's no deal, would you be willing to extend the ceasefire, or will the fighting resume, Mr. President?
I would say the fighting, if there's no deal, fighting resume.
Okay, and then on gas prices, how much longer will Americans continue to see these high gas prices?
Well, they're not very high. If you look at what they were supposed to be in order to get rid of a nuclear weapon with the danger that entails. So the gas prices have come down very much over the last 3-4 days. I know, and that's what ABC says. But the fact is that if you look at the stock market's up, everything's doing really well. And the big thing we have to do is we have to make sure that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon, because if they do, you want to talk about problems, you'd have problems. So very important is that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon, and they've agreed to that. Iran's agreed to that, and they've agreed to it very powerfully.
I hear the meow. Yeah, so if Trump just said right now, so if there's no deal, he's gonna continue the fighting. That doesn't seem that good. Oh God, why is it showing me that? Let me see how long my stream has been going on. 43 minutes.
Prevent fraud and prioritize merit over DEI agendas. For most Americans agree that taxpayer dollars should not fund abortion, regardless of political affiliation. Title X of the Public Health Service Act has explicitly excluded abortion. Rescinded by the Biden administration.
I think I'm gonna end the stream. So cheers everybody. I'm gonna end the stream. Quick. Just gonna end it. So cheers everyone. Everyone have a nice day. Yeah, cheers everybody. I'm gonna end the stream. Cheers.